We've been on a bit of a roller coaster ride this morning with the numbers locally and globally. I'd love to know, we're starting to see a little bit more positive consumer sentiment in the Australian market, which I think I've jumped on every article I can find showing that sort of light in the last week or so. How are you both thinking about, the next 12 months in terms of what you're seeing in an uncertain market with hopefully a little bit of a change and a bit of light for both your own businesses, and I know you're very close to a lot of your customer businesses as well. Liana, do you want to kick off?
Yeah, sure. So like you, I am searching for, any glimmer of green shoots and hope that we might come out of a global economic crisis and a cost of living crisis at some point in time. I'll say it out loud as a CMO in the room. I hope marketing budgets get returned to scale in the not too distant future. And the reason that I say that is not because marketers are greedy and like to have big budgets and all of those sorts of things, but marketing fundamentally exists to deliver against a business strategy. So whatever your organisation's business strategy for growth is, marketing obviously exists to deliver directly towards that, and that can't be done by slashing marketing budgets. So to any CMOs in the room or marketers in the room, if you are having that experience, I feel you. But I think, what I have witnessed over probably the last 12 to 18 months is a bit too much of a swing to short-termism, to performance-based metrics, to, wanting to capitalise on existing demand right here and right now. And we need to swing back to that balance between capitalising on existing demand and building future demand. Which is a James Hermanism. For anybody who hasn't read that book, I highly recommend it. Les Binet would have said the long and the short of it. Marketing is both a short and a long game, and I worry that we have in this environment, been put into a position where we are only capitalising on that existing demand. And the reality is that depending on the category that you're in and the life cycle of the purchase of your product, your consumer market, only 5 to 15% of your customers might actually be in market today. The other 85 to 95% of them might not be in market for a month, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months or 5 years if you're a car. So we've really got to start to bring more balance back to that short and that long game. And I think we've got an incredible opportunity to do so. Sorry, this is a bit of a rant, but the other thing that I would love to hear more of actually over the course of today is putting the consumer at the heart of the decisions that we make. Because if we do that, then the business will come. I worry a little bit as we get, much more experienced and much more into our digital-only future, that we're actually distancing ourselves from the consumer and from humans. And, if marketing exists to deliver a business strategy, it's about how you influence humans to think, feel or do something as a consequence of what you're doing. So let's put humans back at the centre.
Sounds awesome.
Well, I had some prepared remarks, but after everything this morning, I'm going to throw that out the window. So, and firstly, look, I'm going to leave the economic stuff to the professionals, but I think there's some interesting trends in there. So I speak to a lot of C-suite customers in my role, and in particular CEOs. And actually, we recently surveyed over 280 of them across Australia. And generative AI, not just AI, but generative AI is in their top 3 priorities, which is really interesting for a technology. Usually CEOs are not in that space. And the reason they're so interested is that they see an opportunity to grow the top line while also compressing and reducing the bottom line. So how do they grow more money, make more money with actually spending less? And some of the slides at the end that Daniel had there is interesting, like how we are using AI, but that's not how they're thinking about it. It's more like the Publicis Sapient organisation, where they're trying to work out how they can reduce cost. And how can they reduce cost is how they can do more. And it isn't with productivity gains into the individual. It's actually by deploying like agents and agentic AI. So customer service being handled automatically or deflected in a call center, or customer service being delivered end-to-end almost with an agent. And that's where I see a change, right? Yeah. So interestingly, from an economy point of view, when you link it back to the first presentation, if there isn't a lot of growth, CEOs are going to look for something. And that's why they're hanging on to that. And so I can go a little further, but I'll pause there.
No, I was just going to say, like with having Gen AI as a priority, Like it's really just shorthand for efficiencies. Like it's almost like not even it's a way of delivering it, but it's what the business needs.
Well, it's actually a nuance. So a lot of us think, yes, we've used ChatGPT, we all can get a little bit better, a little bit faster. That was actually the second wave. This is moving very fast. The new wave, which we obviously are offering to our customers too, so I'm biased, but I'm seeing it firsthand from some of our customers, is where you can have a human augmented, and so they're actually doing work that the human no longer has to do. So if you think about an agency example, it looked like in Daniel's presentation, a lot of it was how do you do more creative, faster, but actually it's the person to agency communication. You could remove that, handling all the simple questions, signing on to a new brief, getting all the information for it, that could be done automatically and autonomously by an agent now.
The only other thing I'd say about that, like as you said, we've all been using AI or Gen AI from an efficiency point of view, but I think there's also taking away administrative tasks or removing work that humans have had to kind of labour over for such a long time. I think there's also a great creative opportunity, and I don't mean no longer a need for human creativity or creative agencies or anything like that. I am going nowhere near that because I do not subscribe. But I think there is an incredible creative opportunity with some of the tools that are out there. If you think about something as simple as, the hallucinations that we all know that these tools and platforms have, they can be terribly factually inaccurate, actually. But the hallucinations piece for me is really, really interesting creatively because it can push the bounds potentially and encourage more creativity and innovation in human minds. And I think that's a really exciting place to go.
100%. So I'll show a few examples. So for us, Mecca is one of our flagship customers, and they deployed Miss Mecca on their website. So, and by the way, my daughter spends way too much money at Mecca as well. I don't know. Beauty Loop
Most
member.
of us do.
Yes. Yeah. And so historically, you would have someone that's on the other side of the line on a chat on their website. And so they branded Miss Mecca on their website. And you can now go and get pretty much most of your questions answered. 75% of them are handled by the agent. And so what that means is, to your point, you can now allow the customer service representative to now become a salesperson or be more creative in their response of handling a better customer experience. So most businesses are seeing it as a way to reduce their costs, but also reinvest in the areas, to your point, of creativity, allowing the humans to actually have a personal touch with the customer. And I think that's a good thing. Like, there's a lot of things that we all didn't want to do, but we kind of, if you looked at that chart, was the polycrust, that's crazy. Right? All the things that we're now doing as well.
I'm going to pin you down as CMO roles. So we've talked a lot about your clients, but I'd love to know how you're showing up. If you're, walking the talk, Liana, in terms of, you have the most interesting, complicated role, I think, in the media industry. You're marketing consumers, you're marketing to marketers, you're the heart of a media organisation that's trying to reinvent. But for you, particularly on that consumer side, where you're showing up, how you're showing up, what trends are influencing how you do that?
Sure, great question. So maybe just to qualify, just in case anybody doesn't know the makeup of Nine. So as the CMO of Nine, I span the company's media assets, which covers our television business, including Stan, our publishing assets like the Sydney Morning Herald, the AFR, The Age, Brisbane Times, WA Today, and our radio assets, 2GB, 3AW, 4BC, etc., plus our marketplaces like drive.com.au. The remit is both a consumer and a B2C and a B2B remit. And to your point, marketing is my craft, but media is my business. 25 years in the media industry, so not a day over 25 though, of course. But there are some really, really interesting things for me that both keep me awake at night and make me very excited. Measurement is something that I'm particularly enthused and passionate, and also it makes me a little bit mad about. I think as an industry, one of the challenges that we have faced is we've had legacy measurement systems in place for a really long time that were built in an era where societal constructs existed, technology wasn't as advanced, data capabilities weren't there, et cetera, and still today, the media industry writ large is operating on a lot of those legacy structures, and they're just ineffectual for, the world that we're living in today. So I think we've got a really big job to do and an exciting job to do around measurement, and I completely agree with the earlier presentation around the fact that, as the marketer of Nine, I want outcomes. I want impact. I want to grow my brand. I want to grow my business. I want to grow my audiences. My job is to grow commercialisable audiences. So some of the ways practically that we are evolving the way that we look at things from a marketing point of view inside Nine, and I'll give you one example. So market mix modelling, obviously a very hot topic today and has been arguably for a couple of years. We are investing in that to better understand the way in which our marketing strategy can be more effectively deployed, including our channel mix, our media channel mix. We have a very large owned media footprint, of course, but we are also investors in, off our own platforms to bring in that next generation and those new audiences. We've just received our first MMM project back for the television part of the business from Dr. Grace Kite and Magic Numbers out of the UK, which is really helping us to better understand how kind of everything in our ecosystem is helping to drive outcomes and what's better at driving those outcomes than other things. So we now have a depth of understanding, not just using traditional audience metrics, but around, what content is actually returning a greater return on investment to our business. What type of content, what genre of content, what seasonal changes, viewing peaks happen in winter. Go figure. What channel mix is returning a greater return on investment for us, and we're optimising towards that. It's one of the things I think...
Can you tell us?
Pardon?
What's working?
So it's a really great question.
All the owned properties are really great.
Look, we do have a very effective owned footprint. We do. Don't take it from me. Read the white papers. Any global effectiveness expert will tell you that television, publishing, and radio assets are among some of the most effective, that exist. It just is a thing. So they are very effective. But obviously, you do need to bring in new audiences and people that aren't with you at any given time. So, we are investors in off-platform channels of out-of-home, of cinema, of social, of search, of, all of the things that every marketer is doing. And one of the things actually that we have found just recently is our exploration into live sites has actually been really compelling in terms of improving our physical availability in the minds of consumers. So, example, for the Olympics and the Paralympics, we stood up live sites all the way across the country so that people who were out and about in community could still have a viewing experience with us and a brand experience with us, but it wasn't necessarily contained in their home or in their portable device. And that's paying off a lot.
Now, apart from your lovely new tower, which we adore, how are you showing up as a brand?
Yeah, look, it's a little more complicated. So obviously a lot of our customers are B2C, but I'm in B2B. And it's obviously we saw all the presentations of the shifts of how we get attention. I'm not selling something on TikTok for $5, right? Like I'm selling, multi-million-dollar pieces of software that can handle customer service, sales, marketing, analytics. So these are long sales cycles with many buyers. There might be a CFO, a procurement, a CIO involved, a head of sales, a head of service. So it actually is quite complicated to track the return. So our mix has historically been quite varied. We do a lot of in-person activations. Actually, I just was in Melbourne for our event there, a couple thousand people to bring together and share that message. But how do you get people there, right? So you use digital platforms, of course. But historically, what we didn't do was a lot of brand campaigns, and actually we're one of the first organisations that are leaning in. We've got Matthew McConaughey as our brand ambassador, which is pretty cool.
It's a great spot.
Pretty cool. We've got some new stuff dropping soon, but because he's helping cut through, especially in this time of now where things are changing, and it's not necessarily, like I was talking about before, a category that people well understand. So it's not like the CIO might have a budget for AI. Or agents. It's actually the CEO or the board that's saying, you need to go and do this now or yesterday. And so to do that, I actually have to create a new category in people's minds and capture a new budget. And so it's a mixture of in-person. In fact, I was using some of the properties that Liana was talking about. We had the Admission podcast, which is, by the way, a podcast is a great way to get a long format, a new message across. Great partnership with the AFR. So we bring together customers to showcase the work, get our customers to talk about thought leadership, and then we might put a brand campaign around it. So there's not one size fits all, but I think right now where my head is, and it was interesting in Daniel's presentation to go like, during COVID, it was all digital, right? Because there was no sales channel that wasn't digital. Coming out of it, everyone had this passion to meet in person, like today. And so we leaned in to a lot of events. And I see it now being a bit blended. It's the in-person, the digital, the surrounding brand campaigns, but also that mental availability for us is different in a time of change, because it's not like a category that I can just say, just spend more against that and we will win more market share. So it's a really interesting time. Yeah. And the tower plays a part in it as well. Hopefully everyone sees it across the bridge, no matter what direction they're going in.
Yeah, and all that mix, to Liana's point around measurement, is great from a consumer and a customer point of view, but a bugger to measure.
It's incredibly hard. Again, I don't know how many in the room are B2B versus B2C? Raise your hand for B2B. Oh, okay. So B2B, like some stats from Forrest and Gartner, is historically used to be like 1 to 2 buyers. Now there's up to like 25 buyers. So trying to target all of them, knowing what their angles are and get them across a product offering is quite complicated.
Fantastic. One last thing. If you could change something in the industry to make your life or your client's life easier over the next year, what would we do differently as an industry?
There's more than one thing.
Pick one.
I'd probably go the measurement path. We have a saying inside Nine, measure what you treasure. And I go back to, sort of a lot of the constructs of measurement in this industry date back decades and decades and decades and are no longer relevant to the day that we find ourselves in right now. You think about the advancements in, again, to use a television example, VOZ and VOZ streaming, and those sorts of things are incredible for underpinning the buying of reach and frequency and those sorts of things, but we have to move to an outcomes and impact-based system where we can fundamentally prove the efficacy of all of the channels being bought and which channels pay back better than the others. So measurement, I think, is a really critical thing we've got to wrap our heads around and we've got to accelerate. And the only other thing, I'm sorry because I can't choose one, is cleaning up a very murky supply chain and ensuring transparency of pricing.
Interesting. I'll build on measurement. I think, and I can value absolutely what Daniel said in terms of the outcomes, but being aligned to board and CEO objectives. Like when I go and ask for funds, when I prove my results, I have to do it from a sales and revenue lens. And so the ask would be, don't make up measurements that are marketing centric, right? Because it makes you look like a clown when you go in really to go and ask for money or to prove the return of something. You bring in some new measurement that no one understands. It needs to be like CFO style metrics. So that would be number one. And then just advice. I know we're talking a lot about AI, generative AI, agents. I'm in this space, but I would say, don't be afraid of that. My background is in technology. I didn't start off as a marketer. And I feel that we have an opportunity to take a seat at the table to own this conversation. We are all closer to the customer than most other departments. If we can lean in, we can have our teams lean in and understand it, there's an opportunity for us to really lead the way. And I really like that opportunity of the CMO becoming the Chief Customer Officer, or eventually the CEO as well.
Perfect. That's a great lead-in for our next session. Thank you, Liana. Thank you, Leandro.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.